and filling up that hole there. There was a man named Brooks who died and was ushered into the streets of heaven. He was so excited about being there, but Peter was insistent upon taking him on a tour to show him everything. He walked him up and down the streets of gold, and he saw what he never expected to see. Not mansions, not huge mansions. We better get rid of those pagers and other things too, by the way. Not mansions, but he saw warehouses everywhere. Warehouses everywhere. Huge, massive warehouses. And every one of the warehouses had a sign on it. And as he walked up to the sign, he saw it had a person's name. Every warehouse had a name on it. Every one was a personalized warehouse. As he continued to walk, he kept asking Peter, what is this? What's this all about? He said, I'll tell you. Stay with me. He kept going and going until finally he came to a warehouse that had Brooks's name on it. Well, that was impressive. But he thought, am I going to live here? He said, no, you're not going to live here, but come in here. Peter took him inside, and as they got him inside this warehouse, there were boxes of all sizes, packages of every kind of dimension, stacked to the ceiling. And these boxes, every one of them, as he examined them, had 2 Brooks. And he said, I don't get it, Peter. Well, what is all this? He said, these are all the blessings. These are all the riches you didn't pick up while you were down there. I'm convinced that on the road to financial riches, most people don't pick up all the rest of the riches, and they're not happy when they get there. I want to walk through 3 things today that I think will be helpful in putting this together. The first has to do with the whole perspective on riches. If you take the way I spell riches, R-I-C-H-E with a financial sign at the end and a bottom line underneath it, we can walk through and get a perspective on it. That on your way to riches, on your way, walking down from left to right to riches, if you don't pick up all the others, you will not be happy. And that's the name of the game. True riches are more than money. Now, by the way, I don't mind making money. I don't mind being hit with a major coup. A little flush would come my way. I won't say, I'm sorry, I want the other stuff. Is there anybody here who would not want to... no, you would not want money. Was that not one? No. How many wouldn't be mind? You wouldn't mind being hit with a big bundle right now? Let me just see. Yeah, I mean, if it's a curse, then curse me for a day. You know, it's that kind of thing. I've never seen anybody do it any differently. But from left to right, you go from, if you're going toward riches, if you're going after financial riches, why not pick up all the other stuff? Because the other stuff's what satisfies. I want to walk through with you a perspective on this. The perspective is that it's more than financial. That as you're heading toward the financial, you've got to pick up the others or you won't be happy. R-I-C-H-E, financial sign, and a bottom line. R is relational riches. This is the plan for riches. The relational riches are so critical, maybe the most critical. People bring about and bring upon themselves all kinds of degenerative diseases because they can't make relationships work. Companies fall apart day in and day out because relationships don't work. Marketing departments fall apart and can't be effective because relationships don't work. People problems are the problems everywhere on the planet. If you got problems, it's usually around relationships. I mean, we can all think of somebody at work that we think if we were in charge, we would remove. The problem is some of them have probably said the same thing about you. In other words, relationships, they're tough. Relationships are very, very difficult. How do you make relationships work? Relational riches. If you've got good friends, if you've got a good friendship base, if you've got a support base of good friends and colleagues, you're rich. Those of you who are married, if you're married and you've got a good relationship in that marriage, you're rich. Those of you who have accomplished having children and launching those children from birth right into adulthood, and as you're launching them and they're becoming their own person, you are rich. Of all the things I think in my life that I've ever done or tried to accomplish, I'm convinced that the three best accomplishments that I ever had anything to do with, their names are Tammy, Tacey, and Timothy. Everything else doesn't matter as much. Those are the riches. No, I just recently produced a couple really big riches. Grandchildren. Ryan and Brooklyn. I'll tell you what. I like what Irma Bombeck said when she said, if I'd have known that grandchildren were going to be this much fun, I'd have had them first. There's no doubt about that. But relational riches is what it's all about. There's something about loneliness. I wrote a book years ago called Loneliness is Not a Disease. The devastation of loneliness in a person's life leads to all kinds of difficulties in your gut as well as difficulties in your life. Loneliness is a killer. Relational riches. If you've got a good support system in your relationships, if you've got a good family support system, if you've got good friends in your life that you can lean on, let me tell you, you are rich. You are rich. In this plan, is intellectual riches. What I have found is that the core of intellectual riches is not how smart you are. I was educated beyond my intelligence for 4 years of graduate school years ago. I took 128 hours of graduate studies, which translates into about 4,700 hours of classroom. Not for me, because I cut a lot of classes, but 128 hours of credit is what I got out of that. I was taught more than anybody's ever asked me in my life than anybody ever will ask me. I know more stuff that's absolutely irrelevant. I'm smart. But smart doesn't mean anything. You know why I really feel like the reason why I was able to do fairly well in school is because I memorized well. I can burp better than anybody out there. I can burp things back on the blue booklet test. I'm a good burper. That's really what it comes down to. I'm ashamed to tell you this. That's how I got through. I don't think I understood much of anything. I didn't understand anything until I started working and figuring out for myself. Wait a minute, this is serious. This is life. This was not a dress rehearsal. This is for real. And I began to come into something. Okay, so I memorized well. That doesn't help. Wisdom is what you're after in the intellectual riches. Gaining wisdom. That's why I like being older. Now, I'm not that old, but I like being older because you gather wisdom. You gather wisdom by making mistakes. You gather wisdom by going through the pain and messing up your life a few times. Great wisdom comes out of that. People who haven't made mistakes end up being unwise today. When I conduct memorial services, I find a lot out about people. As a matter of fact, I think the best way to plan your life is to plan your funeral first. Is that a little too morbid for you? Let me say it again so you get used to it. I think the best way to live your life is to plan your funeral and what's going to be said about you then. Because then, if you want certain things to be said about you, you better start doing some of them today. Because you know what? At funerals, people talk. There is the upfront talk, and then there's around the casket talk. I'm sharing with you, it's two different talks. Like the one lady whose husband had died, they're sitting there in the funeral parlor, and the eulogy is happening, and they're waxing eloquent about how wonderful this man was. Now, halfway through this, she poked her son and said, "Son, get up there and see if that's really your dad in that car." So you need to plan your life with the end in view. That's how it works. That's how it works. Now, career riches is, what kind of difference did you make while you were in the career? What were you doing with other relationships there that made a difference there? What kind of difference there? In those memorial services, I hear a whole world of people that I didn't even know existed, where they're saying, "Hey, she was always so kind. She was always supportive. She never cut me in the back. She was always a team member all the way through." I mean, that's making a difference. They remember you by that. You make a difference there, career. H is health. Health riches. Only you can work on yourself. And what works for me doesn't work for you. Shoot, I find I have all kinds of difficulties. I've lost at least 3